It starts with a legend, the Messerschmitt Bf-109, Germany's workhorse fighter of World War II. Built in well over 20,000 examples, it stands as the second most produced fighter of the war and one of the three most produced aircraft in aviation history, often mentioned alongside the Il-2 and the Cessna 172. After 1933, as the Nazi state rearmed in defiance of the Versailles limits, a new air arm was taking shape. The Luftwaffe wasn't public yet, but pilots were being trained in secret, and engineers were sketching the future behind closed doors. The Reich Air Ministry wanted a modern single-seat fighter, and it wanted it fast. In 1934 to 1935, the ministry staged a competition. 4 firms were invited: Arado with the AR-80, Heinkel with the HE-112, Focke-Wulf with the FW-159, BFW, Bayerische Flugzeugwerke, with what would become the Bf-109. Each contender had a fingerprint. Arado's AR-80 was a low-wing monoplane with decent lines, but too much weight and too little performance. Heinkel's HE-112 flew well, yet its airframe was larger and heavier. Focke-Wulf's FW-159, a high-wing parasol, was simply dated, draggy, and behind the curve. The Bf-109 arrived as a compact low-wing design, clean aerodynamics, straightforward to build, straightforward to service. Early Bf-10-9s used the Junkers Jumo 210, roughly 600 to 700 horsepower. The real step change came with the Daimler-Benz DB601, which lifted performance decisively. The 109 won the fly-off, entered series production in 1936, and reached frontline Luftwaffe units in early 1937, soon the backbone of German fighter strength. One last detail in the nameplate: BF reflects Bayerische Flugzeugwerke. In 1938, when Willy Messerschmitt took the helm and the company became Messerschmitt AG, subsequent designs carried the ME prefix. By the late 1930s, the Bf-109 had already proven itself. Early versions, the A, B, C, and D models, still carried the Junkers Jumo 210 engine, but the leap forward came with the Emil, the Bf-109E. Fitted with the Daimler-Benz DB601 delivering around 1,100 horsepower, it turned the trim little airframe into a true thoroughbred. Its first real trial came over Spain in 1937 and 38, during the Spanish Civil War. There, German pilots flying with the Condor Legion met Soviet-supplied aircraft head-on and learned just how good their new fighter could be. The 109 was nimble, climbed like a homesick angel, and packed more punch than anything it faced. Just as important, it was simple to service and quick to repair, an edge every Air Force covets once the shooting starts. So, when World War II erupted in 1939, the Bf-109 was already in position. It became the Luftwaffe's mainstay: fighter, escort, and air superiority machine rolled into one. Yet even as his creation dominated Europe's skies, Willy Messerschmitt saw the writing on the wall. The 109's compact frame had limits. Speed, range, and firepower could only be stretched so far. A successor would soon be needed. By 1939, another fighter entered the picture: the Focke-Wulf FW-190. It took to the air just as war engulfed Europe, powered by a rugged BMW 801 radial engine that gave it brute strength and excellent low-altitude performance. In many ways, it was everything the Bf-109 wasn't: broad-shouldered, tough, and forgiving to fly. But the Luftwaffe never saw it as a replacement. The FW-190 was a partner, not an heir. A tactical counterpart meant to complement the slender 109, not dethrone it. The two would share the stage through the heart of the war, each filling a role the other couldn't. Still, the Reich Air Ministry wanted something more: a true next-generation successor born from Messerschmitt's own drawing board. And so the search began for a fighter worthy of replacing the legend. The need for a successor became urgent after the Battle of Britain. Over the Channel, The Bf-109's greatest flaw was laid bare: its short legs. The fighter simply didn't have the range to escort German bombers all the way to London and back. Willy Messerschmitt understood that patchwork fixes, drop tanks, small fuel tweaks, wouldn't solve the problem. What Germany needed was a new airframe built for distance and power. In 1940, he proposed the answer: the Me-309. At first glance, it looked like a logical evolution of the 109. Still a sleek, single-engine monoplane, but underneath, it was entirely new. The 309 carried a larger fuselage and wings, driven by a Daimler-Benz DB603, pumping out roughly 1,750 horsepower. It introduced a tricycle landing gear, Germany's first fighter to do so, giving pilots far better ground visibility. A pressurized cockpit, a bubble-style canopy, and a retractable ventral radiator aimed to cut drag and make high-altitude flight more comfortable. Planned armament included one 20mm cannon and two 13mm machine guns, with a heavy fighter version slated for three 20mm guns and four 13mm guns. Its projected range was around 800 miles, nearly twice that of the 109. A major leap for the Luftwaffe's ambitions. But politics and timing worked against it. Under Erhard Milch, the Reich Air Ministry pushed for strict standardization, fewer types, greater production efficiency. The Ju-88, Bf-110, and proven 109 already filled the pipelines. A new design meant new tooling, new supply chains, and wasted hours. As a result, the Me-309 received minimal funding and even less priority. When the first prototype finally flew in July 1942, expectations were high and disappointment immediate. The nose wheel wobbled on takeoff, airflow to the oil cooler choked the engine, and the aircraft swayed awkwardly down the runway. Fixes came quickly: stronger hydraulics, reshaped cowlings. But the 309 still felt unstable, heavy, and downright unpleasant to fly. Performance numbers looked good on paper. At altitude, it could reach 455 miles per hour, impressive by 1942 standards. Down low, though, the advantage shrank to barely 30 miles per hour over the 109, and agility suffered badly. It could outrun its predecessor in a straight line, but in a turning fight it was outclassed. By mid-1943, the verdict was clear. The Me-309 offered only marginal gains at enormous cost. With war production already stretched thin, no one wanted to tear down existing lines for a fighter that was faster only in theory. The project was canceled after 4 prototypes. A twin fuselage variant, the Me-609, remained a concept sketch, an ambitious footnote to a dream that never flew. Even as the Me-309 program fizzled out, Messerschmitt refused to quit. He reached back to an earlier project, a name that already carried a hint of glory: Me-209. The first Me-209, built in 1939, wasn't a combat aircraft at all. It was a one-off record breaker, a tiny, stripped-down speed machine meant for one thing: setting a world record. Using a specially tuned Daimler-Benz DB601 that pumped out nearly 2,300 horsepower, it hit 469 miles per hour, a figure that stunned the aviation world and held its place for years. German propaganda quickly turned that record into a myth, promoting the 209 as a super fighter ready for combat. In truth, it was a fragile racer that could barely take off with guns or armor. 4 years later, Messerschmitt resurrected the name, but this time the goal was serious. The new Me-209-2, drawn up in 1943, aimed to be a direct and practical successor to the Bf-109. To save money and factory time, engineers planned to reuse as many Bf-109G components as possible: the fuselage frame, landing gear, and cockpit layout. But once the design work began, those shortcuts vanished. The fuselage had to be lengthened, the tail enlarged, and entirely new, longer wings were required to handle the added weight and power. Under the cowling sat either the Daimler-Benz DB603 or the Jumo 213, both producing around 1,750 horsepower, roughly matching the performance of Focke-Wulf's new FW190D Dora. Armament followed a familiar formula: 120 or 30 millimeter cannon firing through the propeller hub, plus two 13 millimeter machine guns mounted in the wings. Top speed was promising, around 410 miles per hour in normal power, climbing to roughly 458 miles per hour when boosted with the MW50 or nitrous oxide system. The first prototype flew in November 1943, and by all accounts, the Me 209-2 performed well, just not well enough. It was faster than the BF109G, but only by a modest margin, and every extra improvement came at the price of extra complexity. The FW190D was not only simpler to build, but also about 16 miles per hour faster at 20,000 feet. With resources dwindling and Allied bombers closing in, the Reich Air Ministry had no patience for another experimental fighter. By late 1944, the verdict was sealed. The Me 209-2 offered solid performance but no revolution, an aircraft born in the wrong time, outpaced by politics, production, and the pace of war. What began as Messerschmitt's last bid to replace his masterpiece ended quietly, overshadowed by the very machine it was meant to surpass. From the fading embers of the Me 209 program came a few strange offshoots, ambitious on paper, but none ever left the drawing board. One concept, the Me 409, envisioned a twin fuselage design, essentially two 2092s bolted together, intended either as a heavy destroyer or a high-altitude interceptor. It never advanced beyond sketches before the idea passed to Blohm and Voss, evolving into the BV-155. Another, the ME-509, pushed the pilot far forward into a nose-mounted cockpit that gave it a profile eerily similar to Japan's Yokosuka R2Y. Perhaps by coincidence, perhaps not. It too remained ink on paper. And finally, the Me-609, a twin-body derivative of the 309, aimed to rival the American F-82 twin Mustang, but never left the drafting table. In the end, none of Messerschmitt's ambitious successors could unseat the veteran they were built to replace. The BF-109 had one priceless advantage: adaptability. Its airframe was simple, sturdy, and endlessly modifiable. Mechanics could swap engines, mount new cannons, or hang extra fuel tanks without reinventing the airplane. Factories could build it quickly, repair it easily, and keep it flying despite shortages and bombings. That practicality became its shield. The Reich Air Ministry prized stability above novelty. With the war dragging on and raw materials thinning out, introducing a brand new fighter meant retraining workers, retooling plants, and halting the steady flow of aircraft to the front. As long as the 109 could take a new Daimler-Benz engine or an upgraded gun package, there was no reason, industrial or military, to risk the disruption. The Luftwaffe needed numbers, not experiments. No prototype, not the 309, 209, nor their exotic twins, offered a leap great enough to justify the cost. In many ways, the BF-109 survived not because it was perfect, but because it was good enough, built at the right time, and refined again and again until war's end. It's a lesson history has repeated elsewhere. America's own M4 Sherman tank was never the most powerful on the battlefield, but it rolled out in such staggering numbers that it overwhelmed its foes. Quantity, when managed well, can be a weapon all its own. In a total war, reliability and mass production often decide victory long before innovation ever has the chance. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and subscribe for more tales from the skies.